My husband left me for my sister when I couldn't conceive. Now that I'm pregnant, he's begging me to stay. Husband lies, gaslights me, and chooses my sister when I'm unable to conceive. But I actually end up pregnant, and now he's angry that I'm still proceeding with the divorce. My older sister, Nicole, and I were always close growing up. She was my best friend and confidant. I could talk to her about anything. I remember from the moment I could walk and talk, she was the one I turned to with my questions and my worries, since our parents always encouraged us to be close with each other. In the beginning, Nicole had this natural warmth about her. She was patient and kind, always ready with a hug or a comforting word whenever I needed it most. As kids, we spent countless hours together, building forts in our room, playing Barbie, lost in our own world of make-believe. Nicole loved reading books to me every night before we would fall asleep. When I started going to school, I remember I would cry a lot and beg my parents to not leave me all on my own. However, Nicole, who was a few grades ahead of me at school, assured me that she would watch over me, and true to her words, she always checked in on me during her lunch times. It was a comforting thing to know my older sister was there for me at school every day. I remember how she would help me with my homework after school, since our parents were both out working until long hours. Her patience was unwavering as she would explain math problems or help me craft stories for my English class. Nicole had this remarkable ability to make me feel smart and capable whenever I was around her. Looking back, I do agree that our parents basically parentified Nicole to take care of me, and maybe things might have been different if this wasn't the case. As a child, I still remember how whenever I faced any issues, I would run to Nicole for help, and not even my own mother, because I knew my older sister knew me better. Unfortunately, because I was too young then, I never really understood just how much my sister struggled with her own mental health issues, and unlike me, she had no one to depend on. Our parents both worked full-time jobs and were doing everything in their power to keep a roof over our heads. We had a good childhood, and they tried to give us everything we wanted, even if it was financially challenging for them. However, my sister must have felt neglected, and I wish my parents could have given her more attention and love. I remember once walking into her room and witnessing her cutting herself on her thighs. She immediately recoiled in horror seeing me, but I acted like I didn't notice anything, as I didn't want to question her about it. At that time, I had no idea the implication of her actions and thought maybe it was something that dumb teenagers did for fun. Nicole started developing a real drug problem by the time she was about to graduate from high school. Her grades were too low, and our parents would be called every other day by the principal because Nicole would have either punched someone in class during a fight or yelled back at the teachers. Our dad was a much stricter parent than our mom. He would come back home and lecture Nicole for hours, sometimes yelling, and sometimes even going as far as removing her bedroom door just to punish her. Nicole would yell back at Dad about how much she hated school and how everyone was just stupid. Mom would try to calm her down, but she never listened to anyone or changed her ways. The arguments between them would echo through the house, making it hard to focus on anything else. I would hide in my room, trying to block out the noise, but it was impossible to escape the tension. As time went on, Nicole's behavior kept getting worse, and the strain on our family grew heavier. One night, Nicole tried to run away from home with one of her delinquent boyfriends. My parents woke up to a letter she had left for us at the dining table, filled with insults directed at my parents and threats to leave her alone as she wanted to start a new life with her boyfriend. I still remember my mother's wail of pain as she cried, clutching the letter to her chest, since none of us expected Nicole to do such a thing. My dad's hands shook as he called 911, his voice unsteady as he explained the situation. Nicole was still a minor at the time, and we knew she wasn't in her right mind due to all her drug usage, so the authorities took our matter seriously. It felt like an eternity as we waited for any news about her during the next few days. Fortunately, Nicole was found in a seedy motel with her boyfriend, who was apparently involved in some sort of drug operation. While the guy was arrested for his involvement, Nicole was escorted back home since she claimed she had no idea about his side business and had not witnessed anything. When she came back home, I thought maybe, just maybe, she would realize how much our parents cared for her, how scared they had been, and we could go back to normalcy. I wanted to run up to her and hug her, but instead of thanking us for saving her from a dangerous situation, Nicole screamed and yelled at our parents for trying to control her life and for getting her boyfriend arrested. Her face was twisted with anger, her eyes wild and unrecognizable. She appeared to be still coming down from a drug high and was just completely out of it. I remember Dad, his voice firm yet trembling with emotion, informing her, "Nicole, we love you, but we can't keep going on like this. You need professional help." Mom stood beside him, nodding through her tears, her hand gripping us tightly for support. Nicole's reaction was explosive. "Help? You think I need help? You're the ones who need help," she shouted, throwing her arms in the air. "I'm not your prisoner. You can't control me." Dad and Mom then informed her that had arranged a rehab center for her to go to for some time where she could heal. Hearing this, Nicole started screaming even louder and threw things at us in anger. I was so taken aback by how different my sister was behaving that I just went numb watching her act like that. She did not care what she threw at us and if it hurt us or not. She kept screaming at our parents that she would kill herself if they forced her to go to rehab. However, this time our parents were resolute. Mom told Nicole that, as a minor, they were responsible for her until she came of age, and they couldn't simply stand by and allow her to destroy her life. Dad had to lock her in her room for the night just to stop her from breaking more things and injuring herself. It was heartbreaking to see what drugs had done to my sister. The days that followed were a blur of preparations and difficult conversations. Mom and Dad worked tirelessly to get Nicole admitted to the rehab center, dealing with paperwork and making arrangements. Nicole, meanwhile, continued to lash out at us, her mood swinging wildly from anger to despair. The morning she left for the rehab center was one of the hardest days of my life. I watched as my parents led her out of the house, her eyes filled with a mixture of rage and helplessness. I knew deep down that this was the best thing for her, the only way to save her from herself. I remember running up to her, trying to hug her, but she pushed me to the ground and spat on me. I was quite taken aback by this, as until then, my sister had never directly shown this much anger towards me. My mom reassured me that Nicole was just suffering and to not hold this action against her. I understood, and over the weeks, I prayed and held on to the hope that Nicole would come back to us, whole and healed. When Nicole was finally released after 2 months, she looked much healthier. Her once gaunt face had filled out a bit, and there was a hint of color in her cheeks. When our parents and I went to greet her, we thought that now things could go back to normal as much as possible. I remember Mom's eyes were filled with tears of relief as she enveloped Nicole in a gentle hug, while Dad placed a hand on her shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I tried to hug her too, but she ignored me, so I took a few steps back, unsure of what to say or do. I had missed my sister terribly, and I was just happy to see her again after so long. On our drive back home, Mom kept telling her how glad we were to have her back, and how she had kept her room as neat and clean as possible, just the way she liked it. Dad had brought Nicole her favorite candies and cookies from the store. I had drawn her a card where I had written just how much I had missed her when she was away from us, and how glad I was to have my sister back. To my disappointment, Nicole didn't even glance at the card I made. I guess my parents were too busy taking care of her that they didn't notice immediately how odd my sister's behavior was towards me. The days that followed were very tense and confusing. Nicole spent most of her time in her room, and she avoided me whenever she saw me in the kitchen or the living room. I tried to give her space, hoping she just needed time to adjust, but it quickly became clear that things were different. Whenever I tried to reach out or make some casual conversation, she would snap at me, her eyes filled with anger and resentment. "What do you want?" she would hiss, her voice sharp and cold. "Can't you just leave me alone?" One evening, when our parents were not home, I thought this would be the perfect time for us to clear things between us and have a one-on-one talk, so I knocked on her door, hoping to reconnect. "Nicole, can I come in? I just want to talk." "Go away," she screamed from the other side. "I don't ever want to see your stupid face." I stood there, stunned and hurt, not understanding why she was pushing me away when I had done nothing to her whatsoever. I missed the sister who used to be my confidant, who helped me with my homework and shared late-night talks. Now, she seemed like a stranger. Our parents did try to mediate, but their efforts only seemed to make things worse. Whenever Mom or Dad talked to Nicole about why she was angry at me, my sister would yell at them about how she wished they never had any other child other than her, and how much she wished Mom had aborted me. This was heartbreaking for me to hear because, for me, my sister was my hero. She was the person I looked up to. For her, to wish I was never born was the most cruel thing I had ever heard. And it wasn't like she said this out of anger or during a fight. I realized it was genuinely something she wished for. Our family dinners were no longer lively and filled with laughter like they were in the past. Instead, they were tense and uncomfortable, with Nicole glaring at me, rolling her eyes, or making fun of me whenever I tried to talk about my friends or grades to our parents. She would loudly remark what a loser I was or how nerdy I was, and why I didn't deserve to have any friends, while our parents would attempt to shut her up. I would just pick at my food, trying to hold back tears, wondering what I had done to make her hate me so much. The change in Nicole was heartbreaking. She seemed to be carrying so much pain and anger, and I didn't know how to reach her. I missed her more than ever, but every attempt to reconnect was met with hostility and rejection. Her anger towards me became so much worse that she started to find ways to end my life permanently. I am severely allergic to peanuts, and my entire family knows that very well. My mom and dad don't even get peanuts into the house as they don't want to put me at risk. One day, Nicole made some chicken salad for all of us for dinner. I didn't think much about it as I sat down to eat it with my family. The first few bites were fine, however, I started to feel a bit uneasy out of nowhere, and my mom, who was eating the salad and looking at her plate, suddenly realized there were tiny pieces of chopped peanuts inside the salad. She yelled at Nicole, asking if she had used peanuts since everyone knew I was allergic to them, and Nicole said she had used them to make the salad more crunchy. By this time, I could feel my throat almost close up. Panic set in as my breathing became more labored. I grabbed at my throat, trying to gasp for air, while my mom jumped out of her chair and rushed to my side. "Nicole, how could you?" she screamed, her voice filled with a mix of fear and anger. Nicole just stood there, looking indifferent. "I don't think it's a big deal," she muttered. "She must be pretending." My dad sprang into action, grabbing my EpiPen from the kitchen drawer. He quickly administered the injection while my mom called 911, her voice trembling as she explained the situation to the operator. The seconds felt like hours as we waited for the ambulance to arrive. I had no energy to even keep my eyes open. As I lay on the floor, struggling to breathe, I couldn't help but feel a mix of betrayal and sadness. My older sister, who used to care so much about me, had knowingly put my life at risk. The paramedics arrived quickly and rushed me to the hospital. The ride was a blur of sirens and concerned faces as I fought to stay conscious. Once at the hospital, the doctors worked swiftly to stabilize me, and slowly, my breathing began to improve. I remember later that night, as I lay in the hospital bed, exhausted and drained, my parents sat by my side, their faces etched with worry. "We're so sorry, honey," Mom said softly, tears streaming down her face. "We'll make sure this never happens again." Dad nodded, his expression grim. "Nicole will have to answer for what she did. We won't let this slide." I don't recall the exact punishment my parents gave Nicole for putting my life at risk, but honestly, whatever it was, I am sure it was too insufficient given the seriousness of the situation. The entire incident left me shaken. The trust I had in Nicole was shattered. It was clear to me that I could not trust her any longer, and I started to feel unsafe in my own home. As time went on, I would stay inside my room more and more just to escape from her. Our parents attempted to enroll Nicole in therapy, but her manipulative nature was so effective that even therapists were swayed by her persuasive tactics. They often reassured Mom and Dad that there was nothing seriously wrong with her, and even minimized her action against me as a mere dumb mistake. The therapist's reassurances only served to deepen the divide between us as Nicole refused to apologize to me for putting my life in danger. I knew she was playing all of us like fools. I grew so afraid of eating anything around the house anymore that I started going to bed hungry, which in turn severely affected my health. The fear of Nicole potentially tampering with my food consumed me, making me paranoid about every meal. Seeing my struggle, Mom came up with a solution that would give me peace of mind. She bought a small refrigerator for my room that could be locked. Mom convinced me to keep some snacks inside this fridge, assuring me that it would be a safe place where Nicole couldn't tamper with my food. Her idea turned out to be a lifesaver. Knowing that I had a secure stash of snacks that only I could access gave me a sense of control over my own well-being. It allowed me to eat without fear, easing the anxiety that had plagued me for so long. Without Mom's understanding and support, I might have continued to suffer in silence, risking my health further. Looking back, I realize how close I was to developing an eating disorder due to the stress and anxiety caused by Nicole's actions. Mom's intervention prevented that from happening. When I finally graduated high school and went away to college, I felt like a new person. It was a huge relief to no longer have to watch my back or be scared of my sister trying to harm me. The freedom and independence that college offered were a welcome change from the constant stress and anxiety I had experienced at home. Living away from Nicole allowed me to focus on my studies and personal growth without the shadow of fear hanging over me. I immersed myself in new experiences, made friends who supported and understood me, and pursued my interests with newfound enthusiasm. I could finally breathe and explore who I wanted to be without the constant fear of getting bullied. This is when I met my husband, Keith. He and I were friends for a long time before we started dating. It was a natural progression for us since we both excelled in our studies and shared a love for anime. Our shared interests and deep friendship laid a strong foundation for our relationship, and before long, we fell in love with each other. Keith was someone I could truly connect with on multiple levels. We spent countless hours discussing our favorite anime series, debating characters and plot twists, and supporting each other through the challenges of college life. He understood me in a way that no one else did, and I found myself drawn to his kindness, intelligence, and sense of humor. When Keith and I got married, I was reluctantly convinced by our parents to invite Nicole, since they assured me that she had changed over the years. Unlike me, Nicole never even went to college and had been living off of our parents all these years while she only had a part-time job as a cashier. Whenever I would come back home during my college breaks, she would try to find new reasons to fight with me and was extremely disrespectful to me. I invited my sister to my wedding, hoping that she could keep her emotions in check and let me enjoy just one day in peace. However, Nicole's behavior at the wedding proved otherwise. She arrived wearing a white dress, a deliberate attempt to steal the spotlight from me on my special day. I was shocked and hurt by her blatant disregard for my happiness. My husband and the rest of his family were taken aback to see her audacity. It felt like a calculated move by Nicole to undermine and overshadow me as usual. Thankfully, my dad stepped in decisively. He promptly escorted her out of the venue and asked her to leave despite her protests. He threatened to kick her out of the house if she dared to come back and sabotage my wedding. Later, he and Mom apologized to me, acknowledging that they should have listened to my concerns about inviting Nicole in the first place. Other than that slight hiccup, my wedding pretty much went flawlessly, so I didn't hold Nicole's actions against my parents for a very long time. Keith and I have been married for the past 3 years. We're fortunate to have great jobs and a house that we own together. Initially, our marriage was filled with date nights and a healthy sex life, but then we faced a significant challenge: we were unable to conceive. The desire to have children is something we both deeply shared, so we started undergoing every medical test available to find any clear reason why we were unable to conceive. However, there was nothing inherently wrong with us, and doctors kept advising us to just keep trying. Now, I've always had a belief in trusting the universe and timing. I felt that we would get pregnant when we were meant to. However, Keith is very methodical and tends to seek control over every situation. He started getting obsessed with researching potential issues and insisted on me going on different diets every other month, all in the hopes of optimizing our chances of getting pregnant. This entire approach started to slowly make me feel too overwhelmed and stressed out. While I understood his need for answers and solutions, I struggled with the constant pressure to change my lifestyle or habits based on the latest advice he read about. If I ever tried to talk to him about it, he would scream at me that I wasn't trying hard to be a parent and that his mother never had any issue getting pregnant with 3 children. His harsh words and erratic behavior started to create tension between us, and this is how we started growing apart in our marriage. On 2 separate occasions, I found Keith cheating on me twice with different women he met at bars. Each time he was caught, he would beg me not to leave him. He would profess his undying love for me and promise that he wanted nothing more than to start a family with me. However, after a few days, he would gradually start gaslighting me and blaming me for his actions, saying that I drove him to seek attention elsewhere. Over time, I began to recognize this pattern as a never-ending cycle. I realized that I couldn't continue living like this, constantly second-guessing myself and hoping for change that never seemed to come. This is why slowly, I started to mentally detach myself from our marriage. Last week, I finally confided in my best friend about what I was going through. I was too ashamed to admit it before, however. She listened without judgment and helped me see that my feelings were valid. She encouraged me to prioritize my own well-being and consider leaving Keith for good. The very night I had decided to sit down and talk to Keith about everything, he did not even bother coming back home. I called him multiple times and he kept ignoring my calls, which made me furious. I knew the bar he frequented, so I drove there to see what other bimbo he was talking to this time. Imagine my shock when I saw my sister, Nicole, and Keith sitting together at a corner booth. They looked quite cozy with each other and were laughing and kissing like this was an everyday thing for them. I felt like my whole world shattered at that very moment. I took a few pictures just for confirmation and drove my ass back home, while silently crying in my car. Then I packed my bags and left. I remember driving straight to my parents' place and falling into my mother's arms as I recounted everything. They couldn't believe Nicole would do such a vile thing to me, but fortunately, I had pictures to prove what I had witnessed. My dad was pissed. He called Nicole and screamed at her to come back home immediately. I guess my sister must have already sensed my dad's angry tone on the phone about what was coming, because she had the audacity to come home to our parents' place with Keith Long. Story short, my dad threw all her stuff out while Keith and Nicole tried their best to explain to us how they were better suited for each other, and that we needed to just give them a chance. My mother was so pissed that she literally pushed them out of the door and told my sister to never come back home again. Since then, I have been getting calls and messages from Keith trying to explain his side of the story and telling me how sad and depressed Nicole is about being kicked out of home. He blames me for involving our parents without talking to them first, Ida for getting my sister kicked out of home, and my parents cutting off all contact with her. Update 1, my dad and some of his friends helped me pack up and move all my things into my parents' place. It feels surreal to be back in my childhood house after so long. Nicole has moved in with Keith now. She's been trying to reach out to our parents, but they haven't shown much interest in hearing her side of the story. According to Keith, apparently they met at the bar accidentally months ago, and he mentioned how Nicole provided him with comfort and understood his pain. For those wondering, Keith has always been very well aware of the history between Nicole and me, and he witnessed firsthand how she tried to disrupt our wedding. Despite this, I doubt he gave much thought before getting involved with her, because he is just a sleazy man at the end of the day. As for Nicole, she has always harbored resentment towards me and probably saw pursuing my husband as a way to assert her power over me. It's possible that both of them found the idea thrilling, even arousing during their affair. Anyway, I will be talking to a divorce lawyer this week so I can go forward with my divorce. Update 2. Okay, I know it's been a month since my last update, but I am back with some important news. I recently discovered that I am pregnant. It's something I've wanted so badly, but I can't help wishing the circumstances were different. My parents have strongly discouraged me from keeping this child because they fear it will forever tie me to Keith, and I'm not sure if I can handle that. I know I need to seriously think about my options in the coming days. It's a lot to process, especially with everything that's happened recently. I informed Keith about my pregnancy, and his immediate reaction was to suggest stopping the divorce proceedings and starting marriage counseling between us. He assured me that he would break up with Nicole right then and there. I was taken aback by his sudden change in behavior and couldn't help but laugh at his proposal as it seemed so absurd to me. I made it clear to him that there was no chance I would ever get back together with him. Even if I decided to have this child, our relationship would strictly be only about co-parenting for the sake of the child. Keith didn't take this news well. He was furious and yelled at me over the phone, telling me how he wished I had gotten pregnant sooner so he could have chosen me over Nicole. His words left me feeling disgusted and regretful that I had even shared the news of my pregnancy with him. I will update next on my decision regarding my pregnancy, but rest assured, there is one thing I know for sure: I am getting divorced from that loser, no matter what. Update 3. Hey, first of all, I am divorced from my ex-husband. As part of the divorce settlement, he had to pay me a substantial alimony, which allowed me to secure a new place for myself. I'm grateful that my job is going well, and I feel incredibly thankful to my parents and friends for their unwavering support during such a difficult time in my life. Secondly, I want to clarify that I did not go through with the pregnancy. I understand that some people may not agree with my decision, but I want to emphasize that I was not in the right headspace to bring a child into this world. I had serious doubts about my ability to care for them and didn't want to risk their suffering because of my circumstances. It was an incredibly difficult choice, and I feel devastated by it, but deep down, I believe it was the best decision for both myself and the potential child. As for Nicole and Keith, they broke up shortly after I got divorced from Keith apparently. They had a serious fight, and Keith kicked Nicole out in the middle of the night. She attempted to seek shelter at our parents' place, but they refused to let her in. When my dad threatened to call the police on her, she had no choice but to leave them alone. From what we've heard from mutual friends, Nicole is currently couch surfing and trying to save money. I hope she takes this opportunity to mature and find a better direction in life.